Good afternoon. I'm Lloyd Evans, the Vice President of Governance Risk and Compliance here at Aquia. Today we're talking about open source security as it relates to open source tools. And first I want to start with the goal, which is why we're all collectively here: the fast, reliable, secure, and compliant delivery of value. Value being how our users leverage our actual software. I think I skipped through my introductions. I'm currently working on a USPTO Continuous Authority Operating Program. I'm an Air Source veteran, an AWS community builder, and I have 3 dogs that I will return to as well. All right. As we choose tools to deliver software to our users, there's no real answers. There's simply trade-offs and almost a marketplace of decisions that we have in front of us. So some might see commercial software in the photo to the right. I really just see it as built off of the same photo to the left, which some might see open source software. We talked about myths earlier, that it's less secure. There's simple things that can be misconceptions within the federal government. Most commercial software leverages open source tools to begin with. We just don't necessarily see that from our standpoint, purchasing that procurement. That doesn't necessarily mean that those risks aren't there. And really we enter into a marketplace of risk. So whether you're leveraging paid tooling, whether you're leveraging open source tooling, whether you have a gap if you're leveraging no tooling to fulfill a certain aspect of your tech stack. Our current tech stack is really the starting point for which we can then proceed to make decisions. And you have considerations like you'd see here. Do we have access to the source code? Can we run our own vulnerability scans? Can we see that data? Can we act on that data? Sometimes with open source tools, we might be able to see the particular vulnerabilities, but we might not be able to actually act on them. We're waiting for the system maintainer who's one person that's overworked with features to be able to reflect that. We find those same issues sometimes in tools that we purchase. We could run into capacity problems. Kind of going back to, I mentioned earlier for, dogs, there's adopting a dog, there's raising a dog from puppy stage. Do we have the capacity as an engineering team to be able to take on open source tools, or do we want to offload that to paid tooling to be able to reduce down that buyout and be able to work on undifferentiated heavy lifting? Visibility is the open source tool. When was it built? Is it actually, from a security standpoint, raise visibilities, or do we need to leverage paid tooling, which has that support that we need to be able to get more access into security risks within our stack? And with all of this, it's a total cost of ownership. With open source tooling, you have engineering resources that are being leveraged to actually maintain the tool to be able to keep it updated. So sometimes that can be put onto SaaS tooling or cost tooling. But with all of these things, we're entering into a marketplace of factors that come into our tooling decisions. And from an architecture view, this applies at every level of the stack. So whether we're leveraging data centers or taking a cloud service provider approach, those are different decisions which open source comes into play. Same things if we're leveraging a PaaS environment. It was a great talk that I taught yesterday on some of the PaaS tooling that Nava's working on. Leveraging things that are already pre-built and open source aspects, especially that really help, and then all the way up to SaaS tooling where there's configurations. All of these things result kind of going back to that marketplace interpretation of different areas that we're kind of governing how we're leveraging our tools, and this applies to pipelines as well. I want to hammer on one last thing, kind of going back to the adopting a puppy. So we adopted a Weimaraner, and we took years to train it. And then we also adopted a Dalmatian at 1 year old that was already pre-trained. That's kind of how I see leveraging open source tooling amongst ourselves here in this community, is adopting that 1-year-old dog that's already pre-trained. It's already coming in. We can already leverage all of the work that's come before rather than starting from scratch, simply because we maybe want to control the process. So thank you. If you want to learn more, I'm Lloyd Evans.